She turned away from the window, the rain becoming a mere backdrop to the storm tilting inside her. Your bravado puts everyone at risk. Maybe you should think before you act. Othello took a breath, displayed an easy charm that belied the tension crackling between them. I did what was necessary. I couldn't just stand by and watch. Necessary? She echoed, disbelief tinged with anger. You mean reckless. You could have. The door swung open abruptly, interrupting their heated exchange. Vicky, Chloe's younger sister, burst in, her eyes wide and frantic. Did you see the news? They're saying there's going to be a major investigation. They think we're involved in the... I know. Just stay calm, Chloe interrupted, her protective instincts kicking in. But her tone shifted instantly when her gaze fell back on Othello, who was now scanning Vicky's face, assessing the situation. In that moment, Chloe felt a flicker of admiration, a smoldering ember among the ashes of her distrust. Othello met her gaze, an understanding passing between them, echoing unvoiced intentions. Vicky's urgency receded as their unyielding focus radiated throughout the room, enveloping them in an intimacy that felt almost tangible. Listen, Othello urged, stepping towards Chloe, an energy pulsating as he closed the distance between them. Whatever happens, I promise, I'll protect you. Both of you. The sincerity in his voice turned the space around them electric. His outstretched hand brushed against her arm, barely touching, yet igniting a spark between them. Chloe blinked, caught in his earnest gaze, the world narrowing down to just the two of them standing beneath the weight of unsaid words. An internal battle raged within her. The sweet allure of newfound feelings wrestled against the weight of her past. In that suspended moment, Othello leaned in closer, his breath warm and inviting against her cheek. The air thickened, heady with a mix of regrets, promises, and longing that trembled between them. I know I can't change the past, he murmured, but I want to be better. For you. A shiver raced down her spine, the truth hanging in the air like the charged storm outside. She stepped closer, needing the proximity, their barriers crumbling under the weight of unspoken devotion. Then, as if pulled by an unseen force, their lips collided, a gentle fervor blossoming into something primal. It felt like an awakening, every lingering resentment and hurt fading against the truth of their connection. The kiss swirled around them, igniting a fire that temporarily drowned out the cacophony brewing beyond their cocoon. But just as quickly as it began, it ended. Dynamics shifting the moment Vicky cleared her throat uncomfortably, snapping them both back from the precipice. Chloe pulled back, breathless, flushed, and caught off guard by her own desire. Othello stood there, visibly disoriented, a slight smile tugging at the corners of his mouth, a silent agreement passing between them like a light in the dark. How about we plan our exit strategy? Chloe suggested, her voice steadier now, resolve flickering back into existence. Othello grinned, a knowing look in his eyes. Putting the past behind us sounds like a good plan. But as rain continued to fall, the storm of their past was far from over. Scene 73, Truth Through Conflict. The air hung thick and electric in Othello Huxley's penthouse apartment, a stark contrast to the vibrant cityscape that sprawled just beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. The storm that had been brewing all day now unleashed its fury, sheets of rain pelting against the glass, mimicking the turmoil that raged within him. The rhythmic sound of raindrops splattering on the window felt like a countdown, an incessant reminder of the time slipping away since everything had changed. Chloe Carver stood by the window, her figure silhouetted against the metallic city shimmer. The dark clouds mirrored the conflict broiling in her chest. She could see her own reflection intermingled with the storm, caught between the memories of a shared past and the weight of betrayal that hung heavy between them. Othello, she finally said, her voice steady but trembling at the edges. We can't keep pretending like this didn't happen. He leaned against the edge of his glass-topped table, his broad shoulders tense, clearly under siege from her words. A long silence ensued, punctuated only by the distant rumble of thunder. They were two people hurled back into each other's orbit, each grappling with their revelations. Othello met her gaze, his deep-set eyes reflecting both regret and something more, a flicker of yearning that sparked like a live wire. Chloe stepped closer, the atmosphere shifted, the space between them felt charged, like electricity coursing just below the surface of their skin. You knew what you did to my family, she declared, her voice sharp, cutting through the tension. You destroyed everything, Othello. And you think I don't know that? Othello's voice was low, gravelly. I've carried that weight every single day. He shot back, a mixture of anger and anguish swirling in his tone. But I wasn't just a faceless evil. I was desperate too. I thought I was building something great. You were building a lie. Chloe's retort was swift as she crossed her arms in front of her, a protective barrier that spoke volumes about her inner turmoil. A lie that came at the cost of everything my family worked for. A bolt of lightning illuminated the room, momentarily casting both of their faces in stark relief. Othello took a step forward, his determined presence overpowering. Don't you see? I didn't want this. Not for us. Not for anyone. His intensity pierced her defenses. You have to believe me. Chloe's heart fluttered painfully in her chest, an instinctive response to the raw passion emanating from him. Believe you? She challenged, shaking her head vehemently. After everything? How am I supposed to trust you? You tore my life apart. Yet beneath the veneer of her fury, she felt the familiar pull of an old emotion love, gnawing at her resolve. Othello stepped closer, the distance closing like the tempest outside. I'm not asking for your trust, Chloe, he replied gently, his voice softening amid the tumult. I'm asking for a chance to explain why I made those choices. But the moment was shattered as the rain intensified, a cacophony of sound filling the charged silence. Chloe turned away, biting her lip as conflicting emotions flickered in her hazel eyes, anger, longing, and a deep-seated wish to reconcile the past. You talk of understanding, she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. But what good is understanding if it comes too late? An ominous silence followed, thick with unacknowledged truths. Othello's gaze drifted to her lips, anticipation hanging in the air like the rain-soaked mist that filtered through the windows. Maybe it'll never be too late, he said, voice low yet fevered, stepping again towards her, depending on how we decide to move forward. Chloe hesitated, caught between the remnants of her rage and the truth pulsing just beneath the surface. There was still an ember of attraction that glowed fiercely. The battle raged within, and in that moment, as rain drummed against the glass, she made a choice. It doesn't mean I can just forgive, she said, the words rolling off her tongue heavy with the weight of her heart. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Chloe, Othello replied, tension dissipating as their foreheads nearly touched, barely inches apart, inviting vulnerability. I'm asking for a chance to rewrite this story with you. As the storm continued to rage outside, their hearts thumped in synchronized fear and hope, two people caught in a whirlwind, trying desperately to find their footing amid the chaos. Scene 74, celebrating survival. The air buzzed with laughter, a vibrant counterpoint to the shadows of the last few weeks that clung like a worn-out coat. At the center of a sprawling backyard festooned with twinkling lights, friends and survivors gathered, their glasses filled with a colorful medley of drinks. Where did you get the idea for a karaoke night? Laughed Tracy, her curls bouncing as she spun around, her bright dress swirling. I thought we could all use a laugh or two, Othello said, his broad shoulders relaxing as he leaned against the weathered wooden railing. His eyes sparkled, a hint of mischief surfacing, and I wanted to see Chloe belt out a ballad. Chloe, poised at the makeshift stage, rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a smile. Yeah, right. You just want to see me embarrass myself. Let's be honest, everyone wants to see that, joked Amir, his deep voice carrying over the others. He stood nearby with his partner, Maya, both sharing a laugh as they leaned against the outdoor bar. Stick around, Chloe, Maya teased, her eyes glinting. It'll be the highlight of my evening. Careful, Chloe shot back, her laughter ringing like silver chimes. A warmth unfurled in her chest, an unexpected comfort in the company of those who had survived adversity together. While laughter swirled around them, Othello took a step forward, his gaze turning serious as he searched for hers. Hey, Chloe, can we talk for a moment? Her heart quickened, nerves flickering like candle flames. Sure, she replied, brushing off the sudden chill at the back of her neck. They moved to a quieter corner of the yard, where a large oak tree cast dappled shadows. The vibrancy of the party faded into a hum behind them, replaced by the soft rustling of leaves and the distant sound of laughter. Chloe hesitated, discomforted, yet unable to look away from Othello's eyes, which danced with an intensity she didn't remember. "Are we ever going to talk about what happened?" he asked, his voice laced with something deeper than mere curiosity. "Are you really bringing this up now?" she replied, trying to keep her tone light, but it only masked her vulnerability. "Better now than in a couple of weeks when tension simmers again," he pressed, his brow furrowing. "You can't pretend this is behind us." "I'm not pretending," she snapped, emotions flaring like a match to a flame. "I think it's more about you. How do I trust you after everything?" Othello's gaze darkened, an edge of hurt slicing through his confidence. "I know I messed up, Chloe, but I want to fix this us. I miss what we had." Unable to meet his gaze, she felt the tangled memories rise between them, the anger, betrayal, storms that both torn them apart and united others in their stead. "And what was that, Othello? A facade to protect you from your mistakes?" His laugh was bitter. "Trust me, I know exactly what I've done. But I've changed, Chloe. You've seen it, how hard I'm trying." Just as frustration peaked within her, an unexpected rush of emotion surged in her chest, muffling the noise of the gathering. "Trying doesn't change the past," she gasped, her voice a whisper woven with agony. "Maybe we need to rewrite that past together," he suggested, stepping closer. Their breath mingled in the cool air, desperation in his eyes. "What if we start again? Something new without ghosts following us around?" Chloe's heart raced, suspended in a fragile space between trust and betrayal. She swayed slightly, their bodies nearly touching, electricity crackling like thunder overhead. "Maybe we need to explore more of." "How about a duet, Chloe?" Tracy called from the stage, oblivious to the tension that suffocated the air. Laughter erupted around them, dragging Chloe back into the present. "We could sing Endless Love," Amir shouted, grinning wildly. The suggestion broke the moment, yet Chloe felt the weight of Othello's gaze still locked on her. "Save me a spot," she called, the moment lost but not gone. She turned back to Othello, resolve firming up in her chest. "We'll talk later." He nodded, the glimmer of understanding passing between them before they returned to rejoin their friends, both knowing the conversation was far from over. As the first notes of an off-key melody filled the air, Chloe leaned into the moment, allowing laughter to froth over the uncertainty, feigning ease, her heart still eulogizing buried emotions. "Chloe, you okay?" Othello asked gently, sidling up to her as they joined the others. "Yeah, just breathing," she replied softly, the tension mellifluous in the background, but he could see through her facade. Their shared laughter may have shaken some old pieces loose, but the bond they each felt was undeniably tethered strong, yet unspoken. The night was still young after all. Perhaps more than one celebration graced the horizon. Scene 75, the aftermath of escape. The air in the dimly lit room hung thick with unspoken words, heavy as Chloe leaned against the desk, arms crossed defensively. Othello stood nearby, his posture shifting uncomfortably as he ran a hand through his tousled hair, a delicate act of restraint echoing in the quiet chaos of their surroundings. The remnants of the hostage situation felt distant, yet their heartbeat pulsed in time with the unresolved tension between them. "What if we hadn't gotten out?" Chloe's voice was low, laced with an edge that sent a ripple of alarm through Othello. She looked sideways at him, her dark eyes flaring with intensity, the light catching the sheen of her skin like polished mahogany. What if we hadn't? In all the time they spent together, the depth of Chloe's vulnerability rarely surfaced. Othello's jaw tightened at the thought, each muscle in his body instinctively drawn toward her. "Then we wouldn't be here," he replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "We made it." She returned his gaze, piercing, challenging, yet somehow inviting. There was a flicker of uncertainty beneath her confidence, a vulnerability they both had been navigating ever since the night unraveled at Lazarus Chambers. "What do you mean by that?" Chloe stepped forward, breaking the distance, only to halt as if surprised by her own boldness. The golden light streaming through a window bathed them, revealing the delicate flicker of awareness between them, a magnetic charge brimming with possibilities unspoken. "I mean, we survived." Othello stepped closer too, drawn in, yet wary of the intensity simmering just beneath the surface. Their body language bared everything. Something raw lay between them, igniting like flames reaching for oxygen. Chloe's breath quickened, her eyes shimmering with life and fury. No, that's not it, Othello. You know that it's more than just survival for me. This, she gestured between them, the tremor in her voice betraying her calm facade, this is a pile of rubble waiting to collapse. A wry smile ghosted across his lips, yet the weight of their history loomed over them. Are you saying you'd rather hide behind resentment than acknowledge what we've become? What we were, she retorted, her voice rising. I can't just forget that you were part of the reason my family lost everything. You. Chloe, Othello's temper flared as he took a step forward, cutting her off with urgency. I was trying to keep everything afloat. I didn't know it would end up like this. His shoulders flexed, muscles taut with unspent energy, the space between them electric with tension. The truth rang louder than any fight. I didn't mean to hurt you. Her eyes softened, a fleeting moment narrowing the chasm of mistrust. Then what did you mean to do? She pressed, her voice barely above a whisper, yet sharp with scrutiny. Protect us both, he countered, his chest tightening at the weight of his own words. There was no other choice. But if I had known how much it would affect you. A sudden knock shattered the moment, and Chloe turned away, the air shifting with the intrusion. John, their mutual friend, barged in with an air of overzealous energy, startling them both. Hey, you two are in here. I thought you were taken captive forever. His smile was bright, but there was a hint of seriousness in his voice. Marlene is throwing a reunion party to celebrate, life, I guess. Othello glanced at Chloe, reading the residual tension in her gaze. As much as he wanted to pull her back into the moment, words simmering on his tongue remained unspoken. Following all the chaos? Sounds like a terrible idea, Chloe replied, brushing off the suggestion with a wave of her hand, the warmth of their earlier connection starting to slip away into whispers of doubt. You're wrong, John said with genuine exuberance. It's the perfect way to decompress. Plus, did you know there's a karaoke machine? I believe a duet is in order. The tension released a little. Chloe couldn't help but smile slightly, elbows settling against the desk again. You don't even sing, John. Only when the moment calls for it, he grinned, inciting a chuckle from Othello. For a split second, amidst the chaos of emotions, Chloe felt the warmth of laughter enveloping her, a brief escape from her turmoil. But as she glanced at Othello, the tempest of feelings caught in her throat. I'll think about it, Chloe finally muttered, stealing one last glance at Othello, her heart heavy with uncharacteristic indecision, and his eyes were dark pools filled with yearning and regret. With one foot gingerly placed in the fragile territory of possibility, they both knew that their choices would shape everything to come. Scene 76. Navigating New Waters. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the city. As Chloe Carver stood on the terrace of her newly acquired loft, the air mixed with the scent of blooming jasmine and the distant hum of traffic. She watched as the world bustled below, the pulse of life a stark contrast to the chaos she had just escaped. Each breath felt like a fragile tether to her sense of self, slowly stitching together the jagged pieces of her fractured identity. The unresolved tension curled deep in her stomach, reminiscent of the urge to flee, a remnant of the hostage situation she had never wished to relive. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Othello Huxley stepped onto the terrace, the cool breeze emphasizing the broad shoulders of the man who had been both her captor and her savior. He hesitated at the threshold, his dark eyes revealing a mixture of relief and concern as they met hers. A taut silence enveloped them, stretching like the horizon before a storm. Chloe turned her gaze back to the city, the vibrant commotion below echoing the turmoil inside her. Do you ever wonder what the world looks like through other people's eyes? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, yet lined with an underlying ache. Othello stepped closer, the scratch of his boots against the wooden floor cutting through her contemplative mood. Sometimes it feels like we're just echoes of who we used to be. His voice was rich, layered with sincerity, but there was a weight beneath it, forced languor wrapping around his words, holding sadness like a fleeting shadow. She shifted on her feet, her body language taut. A clenched jaw and a lingering glance told the story of 100 unspoken thoughts, desires dancing dangerously close to the surface. This proximity, warm and complicated, reminded her of the thin line between hatred and love that illuminated the moments they had shared. What is our story now, Othello? We can't just pretend everything's fine. He stepped forward, his breath warm against her cheek as he searched her face for answers. Are you asking me for a fairy tale ending? Because I can't give you that. Chloe inhaled sharply, his honesty cut deeper than any knife had dared during their dark days together. No, I'm asking what we mean to each other now, she replied, her voice a simmering mixture of vulnerability and defiance. The silence thickened. Othello's hesitation was palpable, the distance between them charged with unsaid confessions and the ghosts of ambition long deferred. As she focused on his expression, conflicted yet familiar, something fragile blossomed amidst the tension. You know, I didn't mean for any of this to happen, he said, his words heavy but enveloped in the scent of earnest sincerity. I didn't want to hurt you or your family. She bit her lip, recalling the ruin he had unwittingly brought upon her parents' legacy. You can't just erase a decade of pain, she shot back, her frustration evident. But deep within, vulnerability seeped through her defenses, begging her to bridge the chasm between them. I never could, Othello murmured, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that curled around her heart like a vine. But I want to make it better. I want to find us in this. Chloe felt the world shrink until it was just the two of them, the gentle rustle of leaves and the soft hum of distant sirens fading into insignificance. She stared into Othello's eyes, where sincerity and longing intermingled, illuminating the shadows of their shared past. Then show me, she breathed, daring him with the softness of her vulnerability. Their closeness sparked a silent acknowledgement, an irresistible pull that drew them together like gravity to the stars. Chloe's breath quickened, the warmth of his presence igniting forgotten embers of attraction. The light around them seemed to shift as Othello lowered his gaze, tracing the contours of her face softly with his eyes. Time suspended as he reached out, brushing his fingers against her cheek, a whisper of a touch, electric yet tender. Chloe, he said, haltingly. She closed her eyes, surrendering to the allure of the moment, the conflict simmering beneath the surface, yet drawn into the depths of his care. Just don't let me go, she murmured, her heart racing as she opened her eyes, the challenge of the past still looming, yet it felt lighter, easier to navigate together. With a decisive calm, he closed the distance between them, tilting his head just so, and for the first time, the truth hung between them, each of them wrestling with their own past while stepping into a future that, at that moment, felt undeniably promising. Scene 77, Facing the Truth. The air hung thick in the dimly lit room, a kaleidoscope of shadows cast by the muted glow of a single lamp. Chloe stared out the tall windows, the city skyline a jagged line framed against the fading light of dusk. She could hear the distant hum of traffic and the rustle of leaves outside, yet inside she felt suffocated by the weight of unspoken words. The furniture, a carefully curated assortment of modern elegance, had blossomed into a fortress of memories and unresolved tension. Othello stood just a few paces behind her, his fingers flexing slightly at his sides, as if he were wrestling with an invisible force. He was a mountain of a man, resisting gravity, his presence both reassuring and unnerving. The air crackled with the electric charge of anticipation, each heartbeat a drumbeat heralding what lay ahead. Chloe, Othello said, his voice low but firm, slicing through the silence that encased them. She turned, her heart racing slightly at the sight of him, so familiar yet so hauntingly distant. This is ridiculous, Othello. We need to address what happened between us head on, not dance around it. He ran a hand through his dark curls, his brow furrowing in frustration. What do you want from me? I can't just change the past. No, you can't. But we can't continue pretending it doesn't exist. She stepped closer, her voice trembling with the weight of her emotions. You know how I feel about you, yet here we are, still locked in this tug of war. Othello's gaze softened, their past wrapped tightly in the tension that coiled between them. You think I haven't thought about what I did? What it cost you? I won't act like I'm someone you can trust. Chloe felt her anger simmer. Trust? Is that all this is about? I may hate what you did, but I can't deny how I feel. With a sudden movement, he closed the gap between them. You know that my life is complicated, Chloe. I can't give you what you want. Across the room, Marcus, a close friend and confidant of Othello, had just stepped in, his tendency for clumsy timing earning him a scolding look from both of them. Am I interrupting? Because it looks like some serious truth-telling is about to go down, he said with a lopsided grin, unwittingly lightening the tension momentarily. You're always interrupting, Marcus, Chloe said, crossing her arms, but an involuntary smile crept onto her lips. This is no time for jokes. Jokes are essential. Otherwise, we'd drown in the seriousness of it all, he retorted, inclining his head dramatically. That's not what we need right now, Marcus, Othello said, his tone unwavering, but tinted with the affection of familiarity. Okay, just lending a little comic relief. Marcus raised his hands defensively, pulling a half-cocked smile as he sidled out of sight, leaving Othello and Chloe once again in their own world. See? Othello continued, his tone lightening. Even he knows we can't stay in this serious funk. At least indulge in some levity. Chloe laughed softly, the tension between them punctured, if only briefly. Maybe I should have included something humorous in my plan for revenge. Is there a section for comedic relief in that book? His laughter rolled out, rich and warm, dispelling some of the bitterness that hung between them. If there were, I'd write your name on the cover. But that's just it, she exclaimed, her voice lifting again as the weight of the past pressed less heavily. Can you let your guard down just enough to be a little vulnerable with me? He took a step closer, intensity igniting the air again. So you may be the strongest woman I know, but vulnerability terrifies me more than you know. Silence enveloped them once more, thick with the gravity of his admission. Chloe's heart raced, the raw honesty sparking a connection she had longed for through the years. Maybe we can climb that mountain together, she suggested softly, hope threading through her tone. His eyes, dark and reflective, met hers, a thoughtful pause hanging between them. As long as we face what's at the top, he replied, a storm brewing in his gaze. Together. Chloe nodded, her breath hitching slightly in the stillness. Together. And in that simple promise, the room, once cloaked in shadows, began to bloom with light, their truths unraveling like the first tender shoots of spring. Scene 78. Ripples of jealousy. The ballroom glimmered under the soft, ethereal glow of crystal chandeliers, their light reflecting off polished marble floors. An array of colors danced through the air, rich fabrics swaying as couples spun gracefully, laughter mingling with the lilting notes of a string quartet. Chloe Carver stood against a column, sipping her champagne, but the bubbles fizzled sourly on her tongue as she watched Othello Huxley across the room. He radiated effortless charm. His laughter echoed, drawing others like moths to a flame. The sight stirred something in her, both desire and the resurfacing sting of betrayal. Chloe, darling, a voice broke through her thoughts. It was Simone, her best friend, exuberant in a sapphire blue gown that accentuated her silhouette. You're missing half the fun moping over there. Come, dance with me. Not tonight, Simone. I'd rather observe the spectacle. Chloe's eyes remained fixed on Othello, now pirouetting with a delicate beauty in a shimmering gown. His hands moved, sliding effortlessly from her waist to twirl her with a genuine touch that ignited the room. Simone followed her gaze, a playful grin forming. You know he's going to break hearts, right? Just like the last time? Like he didn't already break mine? Chloe shot back, an edge creeping into her voice. Maybe this is your chance to mend it or blow it up for good. Just go over, for heaven's sake. Simone urged, enthusiasm undeterred by the tension. Chloe's pulse quickened as she caught Othello's eyes then. For a brief moment, their connection felt electric. He cocked an eyebrow, and the world around them faded. She could almost hear the whispers, the rumors of their shared past trailing after him, mocking her resolve. Yet the intoxicating thrill dissolved when she noticed Lena approaching Othello again, wearing a dress the color of molten gold. With a practiced gait, she wrapped an arm possessively around Othello's shoulder. Their chemistry crackled like dry leaves underfoot, and Chloe's heart sank. The familiar jealousy surged, potent and uninvited. Lena's not subtle, Simone remarked, her tone steady as she broke the spell. She's making sure you know competition is fierce. Maybe fierce is what I need, Chloe replied, her tone sharper than intended. Suddenly, a crash echoed from the eastern wing of the ballroom as a group of men stumbled in, laughter gone wild and boisterous. In their chaos, someone's drink splattered, disrupting the evening's elegance. Othello turned at the sudden commotion, and Chloe seized the opportunity, determined to approach him before those shimmering barriers of familiarity fell back into place. As she made her way through the increasingly rowdy guests, she spotted Othello pushing fully forward despite Lena's attempts to cling to him. "Othello, wait!" she called, hoping to catch his attention and reclaim the moment. "Chloe, for goodness sake, if you don't go over there now." Simone's voice trailed off in frustration. Chloe managed to reformulate her approach, faking a smile as she reached Othello and Lena. "Mind if I join the party?" She veiled her tension with a lightness she didn't feel. "Of course." Othello looked surprised but pleased. "We have room for one more," he said, gesturing toward an open space that was suddenly not welcoming. Lena chuckled. "Just as long as you know how to keep up." Her words came out silkily, but Chloe detected the underlying undertow of competition. Chloe squared her shoulders, determination sweeping through her. "I'd hate to disappoint anyone," she said, replying back with gleaming civility. Their banter unfurled under the swirling melodies of the quartet, tension palpable in the gilded air. It was as if the surrounding laughter grew louder, drowning out their challenge. She caught Othello glancing at her, his expression unreadable, his charm neutralized within a storm of glances around them, the audience shifting yet enthralled. "Shall we?" Othello suggested, his voice a soft nudge compared to the raucous laughter and outside whispers. He extended a hand, inviting her into the fray. Chloe hesitated, feeling warmth radiating from his fingers, but fear and jealousy tugged at her heart like relentless tides. "Or maybe I'll just watch," she said teasingly, diverting her eyes only to gaze at him with a molten intensity that threatened to melt her facade. "I don't think you could resist joining in if you wanted to," he replied, something challenging flickering in his gaze, though she was too caught in the storm of emotions brewing inside her to decipher its meaning. Maybe she would join him. Maybe she would reclaim not just the dance, but the fragments of everything they lost long ago. Yet even as the strings faded to the back of her mind, she felt the ripples of jealousy swell around her, pushing her deeper into the shadows, uncertain of how she'd navigate this familiar turbulence again. Scene 79. Finding solace in each other. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows of the old community center. Chloe Carver stood at the edge of the kitchen, mindlessly stirring a pot of soup simmering on the stove. Thick, fragrant steam rose, mingling with the scent of freshly baked bread cooling on the counter. She could almost hear the laughter of past gatherings echoing through the halls, though today felt weighty, thick with unspoken words. Her fingers gripped the wooden spoon, the coarse texture grounding her as she tried to breathe through the knot of feelings tightening in her chest. Just then, Othello Huxley strode in, his presence cutting through the heavy air like a sudden gust. Drenched from the rain, his dark jacket clung to his shoulders, droplets racing down the fabric. "Hey," he said, shaking his head as if to dispel the downpour still lingering on his skin. "Need a hand?" Chloe turned, forcing a smile even though the churning of her stomach remained taut. "Unless you can make the soups less like betrayal, I think I'm good." Othello stepped closer, the heat radiating from the stove warming the space between them. "You can't just put your past in a pot, Chloe. You have to deal with it. Drowning it isn't the answer." "I'm not drowning it. I'm just seasoning the truth," she snapped back, stirring vigorously as if the movement could shift the weight of her emotions. Underneath her bravado, she could feel the familiar pulse of desire and anger, tangled like vines. "Truth isn't something you season. It's the raw ingredient," he countered, crossing his arms and leaning against the counter. His voice had a steel edge, but his gaze softened as they caught each other's eyes. "What's your plan here? Hide away from your life?" Chloe met his gaze with defiance. "I can't exactly trust the one who ruined my family's business, now can I?" Othello's features tightened momentarily, the unspoken history hanging between them like heavy curtains. The rain intensified outside, the windows showing only distorted shapes and shadows. "Is that all you see when you look at me?" he asked, voice low, a tremor of vulnerability sneaking through. "I see your past," she replied, barely above a whisper. "Every time I think of moving forward, I remember the ruin you left behind." With a decisive step forward, Othello's intent gaze pierced through the emotional fog. And what about the man I am now? The one who's trying to make things right? Chloe swallowed, forcing herself to disentangle the shame from her heart. Trying won't bring my family back. Silence stretched, punctuated only by the rhythm of their breathing, which gradually synced like an unspoken dance. The air crackled, charged with an intensity that momentarily drowned out the chaos of their lives. Suddenly, in a quick shift, Othello moved, closing the gap between them and grasping her wrist gently. The connection sparked, reminding her of the warmth in their first embrace long ago. You deserve the truth, Chloe. All of it, even if it stings. For a second, she contemplated pulling away, but the honesty in his eyes was disarming, so she stayed rooted, heart pounding against her ribcage like a caged bird seeking freedom. Tell me then, she challenged, her voice barely breaking the fog of uncertainty. What's your truth? Just as he was about to respond, a loud crash echoed from the other room, followed by a string of startled yelps. Othello released her wrist, both of them turning towards the source of the commotion. Sounds like Amelia just knocked over another one of Jason's prized statues. Chloe chuckled, shaking her head in disbelief. With sudden clarity, Othello laughed, the sound rich and contagious. I bet he'll make a bigger fuss over that than he did when we almost got kidnapped last week. True, she replied, a newfound lightness easing the tension. He could lead a class on how to be dramatically over the top. They shared a moment, laughter intertwining, warming the air, drawing them back into the present. As Chloe glanced at Othello, the complex web of their history flashed before her, a dance of hurt, betrayal, and budding compassion that somehow still thrived against the odds. Maybe we can find solace? Othello suggested, their gazes locking in a way that felt like an invitation to something profound. In the madness of it all? Chloe tilted her head, considering. Only if you promise to keep the soup off your hands and keep talking. I promise, he said, a soft smile breaking like dawn across his face. Together, they ventured deeper into the chaos, a new realm of understanding unfolding amid the laughter and fragility surrounding them. Scene 80. A blossoming romance. The light flickered through the half-open window, casting geometric shadows across the cramped living room, where Chloe Carver and Othello Huxley sat, knees almost touching on a weathered couch. Dust motes danced in the sunbeams, creating a surreal backdrop for the charged atmosphere. Did you ever think, Chloe started, her fingers nervously tracing the frayed edge of a cushion, that all our choices lead us to strange places? Like if I hadn't decided to take that business course. She paused, biting her lip as her gaze shifted to the floor, contemplating the threadbare carpet beneath them. Othello lifted his chin slightly, regarding her with an intensity that made her heart race. Strange places can still lead to beautiful outcomes, he replied, leaning in a bit closer, the warmth of his presence almost palpable. I mean, look at us now. Her breath hitched at the uncharacteristic gentleness in his voice. There was a flicker of vulnerability in his dark eyes that momentarily stripped away the shadows of their tumultuous past. The tension between them was electrifying, the air thick with unspoken words. Chloe finally met his gaze, a fire igniting within her as unbidden memories flooded her mind late-night study sessions, laughter echoing through their shared moments, longing masked by rivalry. Beautiful, she said, her voice teasing, but the quiver beneath betrayed the truth of her heart. Is that what you call it? What about the wreckage left in the wake of our choices? I know, he said, his fingers brushing against his cheek thoughtfully, the contemplative gesture making her stomach flutter. I know I'm part of your wreckage. You think I don't carry that? His expression was earnest now, every muscle taut as if fighting the urge to retreat or advance. A wave of warmth surged through her, an unexpected response to his admission. She hadn't anticipated this level of honesty, and it unmoored her, awaking a longing she could no longer repress. Sometimes it feels unbearable, she murmured, daring to inch closer, the sofa creaking under the shift of their collective weight. Sometimes we bury what we feel until it's ready to explode. His voice dropped to a whisper, an intimate admission that sent shivers along her spine. Chloe, you and I, we're not just broken dreams anymore. What are we then? Chloe challenged, her breath hitching as their foreheads touched, an innocent press of skin that ignited a cascade of emotions within her. He hesitated, something unreadable flickering in his eyes, a kaleidoscope of desire, hope, and that ever-present shadow of guilt. "Maybe we're just starting," he said softly, the promise hanging heavy in the air, like the scent of freshly brewed coffee wafting from the kitchen. In that moment, their barriers almost seemed to dissolve, the past melding seamlessly into the present. The tension flickered like the dying light, waiting for that spark to ignite. She could feel the heat radiating from him, the heady mix of musk and something citrusy distinctly him. Chloe dared to draw a breath that tasted of cinnamon and uncertainty. Then the door creaked open. Hayes, Othello's childhood friend, burst in with an exuberance that disrupted their cocoon. "Hey, you two," he exclaimed, a jovial grin stretching across his face. "I brought snacks, and oops, my bad." He halted in his tracks, eyes darting between them, comic relief glimmering in the awkwardness. "Seriously," Chloe groaned, laughter bubbling up despite the intensity of the moment. "You have impeccable timing. Gotta keep life spicy," Hayes beamed, oblivious to the havoc he'd just wrought on a fragile moment. "Now who wants nachos?" Othello sat back, a smile creeping onto his face as he diverted his gaze from Chloe to Hayes. "You are a menace to society. You know that? Only when I'm saving you both from whatever this was," Hayes teased, waving a chip like a wand as if it granted him some sort of power over their emotions. "So what were you talking about? Deep thoughts? Feelings? Love?" Chloe burst into laughter, the spontaneous joy breaking the tension like a dam. "More like the possibility of us making bad choices." She shot back, grateful for the light-hearted distraction. "Then let's make them together," Othello stated, the warmth of his gaze landing back on her before he added, "As friends first. Always friends." "Always," she echoed, the weight of his words settling within her, mixing with the lingering thrill of the moment they shared. Scene 81, uncovering the truth. The room trembled with the distant echoes of thunder, a cacophony of heavy raindrops pattering against the single-paned window that could do little to muffle the unsettling storm outside. Flickers of lightning illuminated Chloe Carver's focused expression as she scoured the cluttered desk for clues, her fingers dancing across the surface littered with papers, empty coffee mugs, and the scent of stale ambition. Othello Huxley leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, the dim light tracing the strong lines of his silhouette. His gaze was fixed on her, not merely admiring but assessing, as Chloe's inherent defiance fueled a simmering tension between them. "You can't just keep digging into things you don't fully understand," he warned, trying to keep his voice low. Chloe stopped and regarded him, fierce determination etched on her features. "And you can't keep pretending that we're not in the middle of something dangerous. If they're hiding something, or if you're simply being reckless," Othello interjected, stepping closer, his voice rising. "You think just because you're ambitious, you can waltz into this mess without consequences? You'd be playing with our lives." Her gaze hardened. "What would you know about consequences? Othello, you've been living with the weight of your choices for years, yet you expect me to bow out?" Her voice trembled slightly with suppressed emotion as the storm rumbled outside again, mirroring the tempest brewing within her. "We're better united than divided," he countered, frustration rife in his tone. "And you know that deep down. Then why is it always about your type of unity? Scare me into submission? You shield yourself behind your walls, thinking a display of strength will intimidate me into silence." Just then, a loud crash of thunder punctuated the moment, causing a tense silence to envelop the room. Othello clenched his jaw, the rawness of her accusation piercing deeper than he'd anticipated. "What do you want from me, Chloe?" Chloe turned away, ripping a loose piece of paper from the desk, her breath hitching as the vulnerability slipped through her careful facade. "I want the truth. Not just about them," she said, voice barely above a whisper, "but about you." A flicker of uncertainty clouded Othello's eyes. "And what is it you think you know?" "I think you've been hiding," she replied, sharp yet yearning. "You had your reasons a decade ago, and yet here we are." Her voice wavered, exposing the emotional chasm between them, filled with echoes of unresolved pain and unvoiced feelings. Before he could respond, a crash resonated outside, men shouting. the unmistakable whir of a helicopter slicing through the stormy night air. Chloe's heart raced, adrenaline igniting their conversation, igniting the urgency of their situation. "They're coming," she whispered, a bead of sweat trickling down her brow. Othello lunged forward, gripping her shoulders lightly. "We need to." "Hide?" she concluded, eyes ablaze. "No, we're not burying ourselves again." Suddenly, the door slammed open, and a group clad in dark tactical gear burst into the room, shouts of commands punctuating the air. Othello and Chloe exchanged a fleeting glance, a shared understanding igniting between them, unspoken but palpable. "Hands up," one of the captors shouted, a hint of mockery threaded through the command. Othello sprang into action, pushing Chloe behind him as he moved with agile grace, diffusing the tension in the room. "No, don't," he shouted back defiantly, pursuing a strategy that hovered between bravado and instinct. Chloe's body tingled with a mix of fear and excitement as Othello stepped forward, every fiber of his being emanating strength. "You want us, then face us." His voice rang out, steady and loud, pulling them into the fray. Thunder clapped, and for a moment, everything stopped. Perhaps it was the air, charged and thick, or the intertwining of their fates. She locked eyes with him, recognition and resolve flowing through her. "I'm not finished asking questions," she stated fiercely, voice low, vulnerable yet unyielding. "Then let's uncover the truth together," he replied, his intention echoing in the flickering shadows. The storm raged on outside, but inside, the air thickened with both fear and an undeniable hope. Each heartbeat a reminder that perhaps they were stronger than the darkness threatening to consume them. Scene 82, Bonded by Betrayal. The low hum of the city buzzed in the background as Chloe stood in Othello's dimly lit kitchen, its walls adorned with paintings of sunset horizons, each brushstroke imbued with yearning and nostalgia. She held a knife poised over an array of colorful vegetables, the scent of fresh basil tingling in the air. Culinary theatrics had never been her forte, but tonight felt different, almost cathartic as she cut, julienne, and diced, ridding her mind of the tumultuous chaos that enveloped her heart. Othello leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, his brow slightly furrowed as he watched her. The tension between them was palpable, an electric current that whispered of unspoken words. The flickering light from the burner cast shadows across the contours of his face, illuminating the depth of his dark eyes. "Do you think revenge resembles a perfect recipe?" Chloe asked, her voice casual, yet the undertone hinted at her inner struggle. She glanced over her shoulder, catching his gaze. "It depends on the ingredient," he replied, stepping closer, his tone cool but layered with warmth. "Sometimes the bitter elements are what make it memorable." Silence settled, thick as the steam rising from the stove. Chloe returned her focus to the chopping board, her heart racing. Memories of a decade's worth of buried resentment throbbed in her chest, too painful to ignore, yet entrancing like the aroma of roasted garlic that filled the room. "Chloe," Othello attempted, the weight of her name lingering in the air. She raised her hand, stopping him. "No, not yet. I can't." Her voice trailed off, lost in the noise of past betrayals. She whipped around, courage waning. "How can I stand here with you when everything I've worked for started crumbling because of you?" He stepped forward, the warmth of his presence nearly suffocating, yet it ignited a flicker of something she had long since buried. "I never intended for this to happen." His voice dropped, taking on a more intimate tone, full of sincerity. "That fire burned in ways I could never anticipate." Chloe's heartbeat competed with the simmering pot behind her. "I had dreams, Othello. All for nothing. You don't get to stand there and pretend it didn't happen." "And I'm not asking for forgiveness, Chloe," he countered, his eyes piercing into hers, searching for a door still ajar. "I'm asking for honesty, for truth on both sides." She hesitated, all the righteous fury bubbling beneath her surface. "Truth? Like how you destroyed my family's aspirations? Or perhaps the truth that everything you fought for has made you stronger, blessed with opportunities?" Othello interjected, emotion lacing his words. "Isn't that how survival works?" Chloe's face flushed with indignation, mixed with an almost desperate longing. "You want to turn my pain into a lesson? It was never part of the recipe." With a sudden movement, he closed the distance, taking the knife from her hand and placing it aside. Their eyes locked, and time seemed to suspend around them, the chaos of the world outside fading into a mere whisper. "What are you doing?" she breathed, every strand of her being urging her to retreat, to remember the past, the destruction, the betrayal, being honest. His fingers brushed against her arm, sending a trembling thrill through her. What if this is the time for us to realize we linger here together for a reason? Her breath caught, and the walls she had built began to crack. The warmth of his body invited her in, and suddenly, all the particles of hurt mingled with the undeniable heat radiating between them. "I am so tired of this fight, of holding all this pain," she whispered, feeling a tidal wave of emotions crash over her. No need to know if there is anything left of us." The words hung heavy between them, suffused with the promise of vulnerability. Time ceased to exist as they leaned in, breath mingling in the fragile space, silence stretching, thickening. With hesitant finesse, their lips met, igniting a flame that flashed darkly and fiercely, a connection both new and haunting. It wasn't just a kiss, it was an intertwining of regrets, of hope, of the bitter and the sweet. The world around them dimmed into a soft glow as every breath, every heartbeat amplified their need. It was reckless and profound, all-consuming, until a soft voice from the doorway interrupted. "Should I come back later?" Chloe and Othello broke away, shock painted across their faces, hearts racing as the reality of their hasty embrace settled. "Maybe just give us a moment?" Othello said, laughter and tension lacing his voice, an earnest grin spreading, even as bemusement flickered within Chloe. Heavy with the weight of the past and glimmers of possibility, they shared a lingering look, a prelude to the battle that lay ahead, fraught with both betrayal and the stirring of something new. Scene 83. Facing each other. The storm raged outside, a tempest that mirrored the upheaval in both Othello Huxley and Chloe Carver's hearts. The ancient oak trees that lined the property bowed beneath the weight of the rain, their leaves glistening under the flashes of lightning that illuminated the dimly lit room.